please welcome Moses Bradley.
Hi, thank you. So, we're going to talk a little bit about CPR. Well, one thing is, I'm probably going to use it to show off a little bit better. So, we'll move it out of the way for the moment, but I'm probably going to bring it up here in a second. All right, so CPR, right? Some of us know CPR. That's great. I'm so glad to hear that. The more people who know CPR, the more lives we save. That's just the truth of it. Cardiac events like cardiac arrest are the leading cause of death in the United States, frankly, worldwide, right? Car accidents, cardiac arrest, these are some of the leading causes of death, right? So if we know CPR, it makes a big impact. Now, one of the things is, we're not all likely to end up doing CPR. Just statistically, many of us will go through life and not have to. That's great. Nobody wants to do it. But another thing that is even more common is choking, right? 1 in 4 people will choke or be with somebody who is choking and so have to respond to choking. And if we don't relieve choking, that is where we are most likely to do CPR. The most common causes of cardiac arrest, excluding things that are like heart conditions, are choking and drowning, not breathing. If you're not breathing, after a fairly short amount of time, you lose your heartbeat, and then you need that CPR. So CPR, there's details to it, but the basics of CPR are just that. They're basic. There are 2 steps that the American Heart Association does for outreach for how to do CPR. Remember, just 2 things. Number 1, call 911, right? We've got to get the advanced care on the way, so you got to remember, just call 911. And number 2 is push hard and fast on the center of the chest. That's it. If that's all you do, even if you don't do it all perfectly, you're making an impact. You're giving somebody a better chance to survive. So those are the 2 things to remember. Just to remember nothing else. But beyond that, it's good to go over some of those finer details, right? The more we know, the better we're going to be able to do CPR, and the better the chance we can save that person. So, the very first step, of course, is we've got to identify that there is a need for CPR, right? So you see somebody who's just lying there, well, there's a problem at all. So always make sure that it is safe. That's the first step that in a CPR course with me, they really pound it into you. Make sure the scene is safe. This is less about the person that we're doing CPR on. This is more about you as a rescuer. If you get hurt, now you can't help. Now there's more people who need help, right? So always make sure it's safe. It's easy to overlook it. Different things you look for in different environments. So just take that split second, make sure it's safe. If it's not safe, that happens, right? Burning building out there in the middle of the road. Who knows? Don't enter. Do not let yourself get injured. Call for help from safety. If it becomes safer, maybe we can remove them from danger. We don't want them to get more hurt, but we cannot allow ourselves to get hurt. So good, it's safe. Then you check response. You shout, "Hey buddy, are you all right?" But if it's someone who's deaf, right, they may not hear you yelling at them, so you've got to touch them too. And it's not light touches, right? So I'm going to put this up here in a little bit better view for those in the back. I'm not going, "Hey buddy." Drunk guy doesn't respond to that, right? We really got to try to wake him up. One of the ones that they recommend is shouting, "Hey, are you all right?" As you mentioned, my favorite is called the sternal rub. You use your knuckles right on the sternum. This is uncomfortable. If you try it on yourself, you're going to go, "Wow, that kind of hurts." That's why we do that. It could get somebody who's a little less than responsive to kind of groan at you, he's all right. If we get no response, that means he needs help, right? We don't know what else is wrong. He needs help. And so that's when we call 911, right? You call 911, you send someone to call, you speakerphone, whatever you got to do, right? In different environments, we'll have different options for how we activate. If you're in an office building, dial 9. If you're in a hospital, they've got internal response teams, right? So use what's appropriate. If you're in doubt, call 911, but sometimes some of those things will get you help faster than calling 911. If you're in the hospital, it'll take you twice as long to get 911 there than using their own internal response team. So great, we've got help on the way. Excellent. We also should probably ask for an AED. I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but an AED can up to triple the chance that the patient survives. So if you really want one, if you can get one, now they're not everywhere, right? We know that. That's unfortunate. But they're becoming more common all the time. A couple of places I generally recommend to check. Gyms. California law requires that a gym has an AED, so that's a good place to look for one. Number 2, public schools. It was only maybe 2 years ago that they passed a law in California to put them in public schools. I don't know why it took them that long to do that, but that's a good place to look. And third, I usually recommend like nice hotels, you know, a Holiday Inn, Radisson, things like that. Maybe not a Motel 6, but a nicer hotel. Beyond that, you never know when you might find them. You can buy them. You can get them online. They're kind of expensive. They're like $1,000, but compared to 5-10 years ago when they were much more expensive, they're reasonably priced for what they're doing. And so you never know what business or home you might find. So always get it. If they don't know, if somebody else hasn't been trained, when you say call 911, they're not thinking, oh yeah, and AED, right? So you gotta name it, or they're probably not even gonna check. So good. Yes?
Could you please tell us what an AED is?
Yeah, I'm going to spend a little more time talking about it, but why don't I just mention the basics here. AED, right? That's a little acronym. It stands for Automated External Defibrillator. That's a lot of words, right? That's why we don't usually say, get the Automated External Defibrillator, right? The AED. Now, the defibrillator is like in movies. Pads clear, and they shock it, right? That's a defibrillator. That's what it's doing. So this one is an automated one, so you don't have to know how it works. It tells you what to do. Like I said, I'm going to give it a little more detail in a moment. So, next step, right? We've made sure it's safe, we checked response, we sent someone to call for help. Now we got to check the more detailed stuff. We know he's not responding, we have to look for breathing. That's our main thing. If he is breathing, we don't need CPR. It's as simple as that, right? Maybe there's other problems. If we know CPR in other ways, then we can do that. Now, there are courses that I teach that also include CPR, but most of our focus is on it also includes first aid, but most of our focus is just on CPR. So if he's not breathing, we're doing CPR. It's that simple. We no longer check a pulse. Some of us who may have taken CPR in the past, pulse was probably a part of that. In 2010, they de-emphasized the pulse because people don't know how to check a pulse. It's that simple. Not even people who take a course and are trying. When you try it, it is not as easy as it seems. So now we just don't even do it. If somebody has a pulse but isn't breathing, like I said, maybe they just choked or drowned or something, because we can't get air in there, they're going to lose that heartbeat relatively soon. So we default to doing CPR, even if there's a pulse there, if they're not breathing, because they will not keep it for long. And it's better to do CPR when not needed than to not do it when needed, right? It's very unlikely that you'll do any serious damage by giving somebody some CPR, even when they didn't need it. So, nope, not breathing, simple as that. We've sent for help, now we're jumping into CPR, yes? You're going to look, you're going to listen, you're going to feel, all of the above, right? So, you know, it can be slow, it can be shallow, there can be ways that can be difficult to tell if they're breathing, but if you go through all of it, that's the way to do it. Hand on the chest, ear close to their mouth, we're looking, we're feeling, all of the above. Now, if we have something called gasping, this is kind of a slight additional detail here, that's counting as not breathing. That's a sign of cardiac arrest. And what does gasping really mean? Well, it'll look different. It can be kind of like a snore. It can be kind of like a groan. It can be really shallow. It can be really pain. Gasping is going to be the thing that will confuse you, whether or not they're breathing or not. But the main thing to notice about gasping is that it's slower than a regular breathing rate. If breathing is less than about 6-7 seconds between the breath, it is not regular breathing. We count that as something to do CPR for, okay? So if you're going, it's breathing, little movement every 10 seconds, it's not enough. We got to do some CPR. So that's kind of your guess. If it's too slow, we're doing CPR. So great. That's all the steps to get up to doing CPR, right? Those are fairly important things. Now, CPR, right? Compressions. That's the whole thing. Most important step. In earlier versions of CPR, for those of us who may have taken it, it used to be breathing, then compressions. But they've switched that around in 2010 because compressions are more important, right? If they're not breathing, they're losing that heartbeat. But by being their heart, that's what compressions are. We're pumping it around. We're keeping them alive until we can get more advanced care. They were breathing before they went down. There's oxygen in their blood already, so we've got to just pump it around, keep them alive. So that's why we focus there. Now, we can give breaths, but basically a lot of us don't want to do mouth to mouth, right? Somebody you don't know. So the biggest kind of shift is that if you don't want to give mouth to mouth, if you don't have a barrier device, so you can make it easy for yourself, then just don't do breaths. You do just compressions, right? Those first two basic steps I said, call 911, do compressions. If you're doing that, you're making a big impact. Everything else, AEDs, breaths, they help. But no matter how much of those things you do, if you don't do good compressions, they don't survive. It's that simple. So, compressions. 4 parts to them. Number 1, we got to be in the right position. So you want to move clothing usually. You got to get that clothing out of the way. You rip it, bring it up, cut it, whatever you got to do. You want to see the chest to get that good position. When the AED gets involved, you do bare skin anyway. Now, if it's so tight you can't do that, you can do CPR around the clothing. It is not an absolute necessity to do compressions on bare skin, but it can make it harder to find your right position. So we want to be above the bottom of the breastbone. That's what this kind of exaggerated bump here is. This is called the xiphoid. It's the bottom of your breastbone where the ribs are coming up to meet. Depending on how big somebody is, it can be more obvious or less obvious. So sometimes just by kind of feeling, you can find the right position. One thing I recommend is if we don't have bare skin to check, if you find where the armpit is and you bring your hand directly over to the center of the chest, you're basically right in that right position, right? Find his armpit, hand over, just above the xiphoid, right? So that's the right position. We want to be on the heel of our hands. You're pressing right over the center of the chest. A lot of people think, where's the heart? They're like, it's way over here. No, the heart is just barely to the left of the center. So by pressing over the center, we're compressing the heart. That's why you want to be right on those heel of hand. We recommend you put your hands together like this. And if we're like this or whatever, you're kind of less control over your pressure. So that's why we want to be in that position. Now, the thing that's probably hardest about this is that doing good compressions is hard work. It's your whole body. So you want to use your body effectively. Straight arms, shoulders above your arms, right? We're bending. I'm doing it this way. I'm using my biceps and triceps. I'm getting much more tired. So we want my whole body weight to do the work, right? That's why we want to be straight. So up on like a table or something, it's a lot harder to do that, right? If they're on the ground where it's more likely that you'll be able to do that, you kind of have that position a bit better. So that's really important. So that's all number 1, positioning. Number 2, deep enough. We have to go 1/3 of the depth of the chest of the person. So on a bigger person, you got to go deeper than a smaller person. About 2 inches of average depth. Air deeper though, right? If we don't go deep enough, we don't compress the heart. They don't survive. If we go too deep, there's an additional chance for some injuries, right? We're going to probably break ribs, but the truth is, they can recover from that if we save their life, right? And even though you're going to hear some sounds, you're going to separate cartilage, ribs might break. The truth is, only 1 in 3 people actually get a broken rib from CPR. So it's actually not quite as common as you might think it is, right? So you just got to push about as hard as you can. That's the trick. Any EMTs that you meet, they tell you they push as hard as they can. That's what you do. Number 3, we have to let the recoil happen. I press deep, I let the pressure off so the heart can refill, right? It's just a pump. That's all it is. If I don't let it refill, if I'm leaning on it, because I'm getting tired and I don't let it come all the way up, it's not fully refilling, it's not getting good perfusion. 4th and final thing is you got to go fast enough. And this is kind of the fun part, right? 100 to 120 beats per minute. What does that mean? Staying alive by the beats.
Yep.
Right? It's pretty fast. It feels like that. Though when you're in a real scenario with adrenaline pumping, you're going to be on hyperspeed. You're going to be like, oh my God. You got to slow down a little bit, right? In that regular rhythm. The truth is 100 beats per minute is a 4/4 rhythm. So it's just about any pop song. You can sing just about any song, but Staying Alive is just perfectly beat, right? Alternatively, another one bites the dust, right? That's why it's not our favorite. And so there you go. That's what you do. You just keep your compressions going. If you call 911 and we're just doing compressions until they get there. That's the basics. You don't stop every so often to like stare at him. Hey, are you okay? No, you just keep doing your compressions. And there you go. That's the basics. If we do that, we give somebody a good chance to survive. So beyond that, there's the other things you can add to it. Now, if you take a CPR course with me or a CPR course pretty much anywhere, they're also going to talk to you about breathing. So like I said, if you don't have a barrier device, then you don't get breaths. That's an option. Better to do something than nothing. But if you've got a barrier device, or if it's a family member or friend, and you're okay with doing mouth-to-mouth, then that's fine. Mouth-to-mouth is okay. People just don't like to do it. For a barrier device, we get a good seal. We have to tilt the head, right? If we forget to tilt the head, the tongue is blocking the throat. We give them enough air to see the rise of the chest. It's not all about the air you can give. It's about the air that goes in there. If we give too much volume, if we give all of our breath, we're going to send air to the stomach instead of the lungs. It's going to make them vomit. Right? And vomit is likely as breaking a rib, about 1 in 3. So fairly likely to happen, so don't make it more likely than it already is. So I've got that seal, I do that tilt. Just enough breath to see that rise in the chest. I didn't.
Oh my goodness.
Right, I didn't do that, right? If I'm holding that air in there, I'm making that air go to the stomach. It's just enough. Now if I'm doing breaths, then we obviously have to stop compression sometimes to do that. So the ratio, which has been increasing over the years, it used to be 5 compressions, 2 breaths. It's 30 compressions to 2 breaths. That's our ratio because, as I said, compressions are more important. So we stop them as little as possible. We've got to keep them going. Whenever you don't do compressions, the blood pressure you kind of build up by being your heart just goes down. And it takes time to build it up. Sometimes you have to stop, but you don't want to stop longer than necessary. So that's that. Let's talk a little bit more about the AED just to show it to you here, right? So this is a training AED. It's like real AEDs are going to be 3 times bigger than this. Luckily, they all do basically the same thing, automated, right? So what does that mean? Remember one step. Open it up, turn it on. If you remember that, it tells you what to do. It's that simple. Let's listen to this one.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest. Plug in pads connector next to flashing light.
Great. It's telling us what to do, right? It'll keep repeating those steps over and over again until we do what it says to do. There are many models of AEDs. They might have slight differences, even though they do the same basic things, just do what they say, right? If you remember nothing else about the AED, turn it on, do what it says. Pads, like these ones, will have pictures on them. They'll let us know right where they go in the chest, right? That makes it really easy. I don't have to remember where they go. I just get to put them on there where the pictures say. Some will have different pictures, right? Different sizes. We just do what they say. So this one points to upper right corner, kind of above the clavicle here. This one is lower left side, below lower left breast. What are we doing here? What's important? Well, we're creating an invisible line that goes through the heart. Right? Heart's about here, so as long as these are on the sides, the electricity comes from one, goes to the other, and gets to the heart. Right? So we can adjust. It doesn't have to be exactly where the pictures say. It could be the other side. Right? That's fine. It goes through the heart. We can't do this. Right? Now it's not going through the heart, so that's what's most important. So going through the heart. Once pads are on there, you plug in connector, and it continues to tell you what to do. It's going to say it's analyzing, don't touch, things like that. Let's listen to it.
Analyzing heart rhythm.
Analyzing, and it says,
Do not touch the patient.
don't touch. If I'm compressing or touching while it analyzes, it might think that's a heartbeat. Get a pulse read. You just stay clear.
Shock advised.
Advising is shock. Charge up, and it's going to remind us again to
Stay clear of the patient.
stay clear, right? We don't want to touch and get shocked when we shock.
Deliver shock now. Press the orange button.
So then it says press the button to give the shock. No AEDs will automatically shock. That'd be a good way to get shocked by accident, right? We're in charge. We press the button when everybody's clear. Yep. Clear, clear, give it a shot.
Shock delivered.
Once I've given the shock, it reminds us
CPR.
to go back to CPR. We will always return to CPR after giving a shock. We leave the AED on, we leave the pads attached, we just work around it. The reason we're doing this, right, the shock is clearing the heart rhythm. The heart is quivering, right, it's firing electrically randomly, and the shock says, hey heart, stop that. Stops it. So that's why you always return to CPR. On TV, right, they shock him and he's up. That's not reality. You shock him and he's down, and you keep doing your CPR every time. Very likely to give more than one shock throughout a rescue, multiple shocks. If it doesn't recommend a shock, it may not. Only some people are shockable, it'll say no shock advised. It won't let you shock him, but it will tell you to go back to CPR. No matter what, you are going back to CPR, whether you shock him or not. Pretty simple, huh? Let's talk about just a few other things. We're just about done here. Choking in a second. Infants, right? A little bit more differences here. Now, children, as far as CPR is concerned, an adult is someone who's gone through puberty, a child that hasn't gone through puberty, and an infant is less than a year. But the truth is, between adults and childs, there's almost no differences, right? We do compressions in the same way. If we give breast, we do that in the same way. AED is going to work the same way for everybody. So there's really no difference between adults and children. The only real difference is that we know for adults it's more likely a heart problem, statistically, and for children as well as infants, it's more likely a breathing issue. So this doesn't impact us very much except in one little special case. It's whether you have someone to send for get help, or if you have a phone or not, right? So if you have no one to send, and you have no phone. If it's an adult, we leave and get help first. You gotta get 911. They need the advanced care. If it's a child or an infant and you have no one to send and no phone, it depends on if you witnessed them or you didn't witness them. Right? If you were with them and they collapsed in front of you, you know they just were breathing. And with no one to send, no phone, you go get help first. You treat them like an adult if you witnessed it. But if you didn't witness it, you don't know how long they've been down, right? You come in their room, they're just laying there. With no one to send and no phone, you do CPR first. For about 2 minutes. And then if there's still no one, you gotta go get help. That is the only difference between adults and children, right? Everything else is exactly the same. Infants, few additional differences though. And really, even though we say infants about a year old, if you can hold them, like this, then you can treat basically like an infant. So, one difference is how we check response. You know, we don't go, hey baby! That's not good. Shaking baby's not okay. Instead, we do a foot tap, right? We just want to stimulate the Lorenz reflex on the foot. So we just give them a foot tap. That's our best way to check response. No response, send for help, all the same things, depending on if we witnessed it or not. Have somebody, those are all relevant. Then we're looking for breathing, that's the same, no breathing. So we're going to do CPR, same position, but we don't really use our whole hand, right? He's tiny, that's not good. We use just a couple of fingers. It doesn't matter which fingers, whatever fingers work for you. They usually show the first two, can be the middle two, can be your pointer fingers, both hands, whatever. 1/3 depth, and usually a little less, 1.5 inches or so, right? But all these steps are essentially the same for here. The last kind of detail, right now, even though breaths are more important, if you're not willing to get breaths, then just do compressions. That's the same as everybody, though most of us are going to be more willing to do breaths for an infant or a child. If we had a barrier device, what's less important is that we tilt only a little bit. For an adult and a child, we can tilt the head back real far. We're not really worried about going too far. Right? On an infant, when they're on a firm surface and we want them to be like on a changing table or table, because we don't want to be on the ground, their head is forward. And that's got a closed airway. When we tilt their head to open it, we tilt it to about neutral. That's open. If we go beyond neutral, we pinch the airway on their spine. It closes the airway again. So that's the last point. We tilt it just a little bit. And of course, we give them a tiny amount of air. They have little walnut-sized lungs, right? So that's it. Little tiny breath. That's all it takes. Yes?
You cover their nose too?
Yeah, these barrier devices cover both mouth and nose.
Okay.
These things. If we're doing mouth to mouth for an adult or child, we usually would pinch the nose and go over just mouth. And for most infants, we cover both mouth and nose if we're doing mouth to mouth. Yes?
Is there any difference in treatment if it's drowning?
No, same thing, right? Drowning, choking, an obstruction, right? We're basically still doing CPR because we know they can't breathe, they're going to lose that heartbeat. For things that may be obstructing the airway, we need to check for the object, right? If we know they were choking, we look for it after compressions before breaths. But if we're not giving breaths, we don't even bother with that. We just do compressions. Those things can force water and objects out. So that's another reason we continue to focus there. So the very last thing, of course, to mention is choking, right? I mentioned that before. That choking is something that we are much more likely to encounter for an adult and for a child. I'm like maneuver, right? We usually have heard of it in one way or other. So, flat fist, center of the abdomen. So we're not on the chest, we're down here on the abdomen. Stomach, right? We want to be above where the belly button is. We want to be below the bones, though, right? We don't hit any bones. Other hand over the first. You want to stand firmly. If you're kind of flat-footed and they become unresponsive, they may collapse on you. That's not great. So foot forward, and inwards and upwards. Inwards and upwards. Don't treat it like we're going to do 5, 10, 15. We're doing as many as it takes. Each one should be the one that's going to do it. Get it. Come on. Right? That's how you got to treat it. And it does work pretty well. We just do as many as it takes. If they become unresponsive, then we got to do CPR, right? We send for help, 911, we start our CPR immediately. Request the AED, still want to use that even on an adult, on a choking person. If they do have a heartbeat, the AED will recognize it and not recommend a shot, right? You can't make a mistake with the AED, it tells you what to do. Now, for infants, it's different, right? We don't do an abdominal thrust, that's his whole abdomen. So instead, we do back blows and chest thrusts. So we want to usually have him straddle an arm, we got good control here. Hold his jaw, so we don't give him whiplash, right? Hold that jaw. We usually sit down, so we rest him on a knee. This guy's fine. Real babies are not so good, right? We need extra support. We give him back blows right between the shoulder blades, and they're not little pat we don't get it out, he's in much more danger than if we get it out. So we got to treat this seriously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Get it out. This is a kindness. You go, oh no, I'm hurting him. If you don't get it out, you hurt him. So after 5 of those, we kind of sandwich him. Safe transition. Not going to drop him, right? Don't toss him. Right? And he's on the other knee, and I'm giving him thrust in the same position for CPR, right on that sternum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After those, as you get it, flip it back. We just keep going. All right? Even though we're doing 5, there's no number of the amount of time we're going to do 5 and 5. We just keep it up until they become unresponsive or we get that object out. All right. Yes?
What about like a 4-year-old little girl or boy there?
Choking?
Yeah.
So, if you can't hold him in one arm, you're doing the Heimlich. Yep, if you can hold him in an arm like that, then you can do that. But if you can't hold him in an arm like that, you're going to do the Heimlich. So, even though the Heimlich is the same for children, even very small children, there are slight adjustments, right? Like you wouldn't want to bend over for a child. You're not going to gain that leverage you need, so you get down onto their level. You lower yourself down for that child. If somebody was pregnant or maybe overweight and couldn't get around their abdomen, we can make some adjustments. So instead we go through the chest, right under the armpits, go through the chest. And this is going to be much harder, right? We're going through the bones, and it's a lot like doing a chest compression, but we're going to still compress the lungs. We can still get that object out. So that's why we make that adjustment, and it can still work. If they're so big you couldn't do that, you can have them stand against like a wall, some kind of firm surface, and we can do it from the front. All right? That could work. We're kind of in the line of fire, so be aware of that. We can kind of get those objects out. If they were in a chair or wheelchair, we can work right around with the back of the chair as our backboard. We can do it on the ground. Right? They can be laid down. We can just thrust to their abdomen from the ground. So lots of adjustments can be made, and it usually still works pretty well. It's all about kind of getting a little bit upwards so that we're hitting the diaphragm to force out that cough.
I've heard when you're alone with your children, how do you do that? I've heard you go against like the edge of the table.
Yeah, a table or a chair. Yeah, let's see here. I got a chair over here. Yeah, this is a great technique. I mention this occasionally. This is a good one because if you're choking alone, you can't really do an abdominal thrust effectively to yourself. I don't have the leverage I need like this. So a chair is one of the best ones. A high table is good. We're basically doing the same thing, though, right? So we're finding this right in that abdomen spot, and you just kind of fall onto it. That's the trick. You don't want to pull it. If you're trying to pull it, you're going to lose that leverage. You just kind of fall right onto that thing. You can just treat it seriously. You're going to hurt yourself. But if you become unresponsive and nobody's there to do CPR, that's even worse. Any other questions? Yes?
So obviously we didn't learn as much as you teach in class.
Correct.
So what do you teach in class and how often do you do that?
So yeah, so like I said, my courses are American Heart Association courses. The American Heart Association is the main organization that is funding the research to CPR sciences, right? So we've heard of American Heart, some of us. Others maybe have taken CPR from the Red Cross, right? Red Cross is another provider. The Red Cross gets their recommendations from the American Heart Association. So when the American Heart publishes new materials, Red Cross changes their courses. So if you want to go to the people who really know what's working and are publishing the results, you come to an American Heart Association site. So our courses at American Heart are video driven. So you watch a video, and that way you get the same information that everybody in the country gets. It's standardized in that way. Everybody learns the same things. And then the instructor, like myself, gets to help give you some extra information, right? The video doesn't say that if you give them too much air, they're going to vomit. That's what I get to say, right? I get to give you the real-life additional information, things like that. Yeah, there's a lot more. You get to practice, right? That's the thing. I can tell you this, and I can show it to you a little bit, and you're certainly better off than not knowing any of that. But unless you practice it, you don't realize how exhausting it is, how hard it is to try that, right? You see me giving a breath, but making sure you get it tight and you're holding it at the right, that's difficult. So getting a little chance to practice gives you the confidence that it takes to really do it when you have to.